Let's talk a little bit about some of the skill set necessary to be a personal trainer, because you touched on some of it. As knowledge obviously is key. And I think a lot of students are, a little bit afraid of how much knowledge they really need to have. But like you said, ACE certification, obviously there's ACSM, there's ISSA, there's tons of certifications out there. I would imagine the more certifications, the more comfortable you're going to be.
It could be. There is, especially when you first start, there's this idea, I have to get all these certifications out there. And you see, there's great ones out there, but instead of chasing them, you really want to do the ones that can really help you be a better trainer, not just to help on your resume, because that's great and all, but if you can help them move better, move with less pain, that's really more important to them. And the more knowledge you can get, and it might be more so hands-on, because I've got a lot of knowledge working at UCSD from the lead trainer there, and even from clients to be a better trainer, and I don't have a certification that's under that, other than.
Right. You brought up a while ago about the communication aspect. I think it's an undervalued part of being a personal trainer. But what have you done to better yourself as in your communication skills?
I would say, I think the clients can teach us a lot. I think a lot of times if you, number one, put your phone down and pay attention to your client, and even just watching them do 12 squats might be really boring, but you might notice their facial expression, if they're breathing, how their feet are placed, how their knees are placed, and ask them afterwards, how did that feel? And every client is different in how they communicate, but the more that you make them feel comfortable and know that you're there to help them, the better it can be. And also, what's good about UCSD, it's a little more clinical environment. And so I have to report to my boss, I have to report to other people about what's going on. And also taking notes kind of makes you more vigilant about crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
Right. Absolutely. We talk about your career, and obviously you've had a lot of experience doing what you're doing so far. What career mistake has given you the biggest lesson in your journey so far?
Probably I would say the one that's where I bring up a lot is when I was at Golden Door, I had this one client come in who was fairly overweight. And my first time I was like, how can I help this guy? I got to help him lose weight or whatever. During that time, he was an attorney, and he was telling me how when he was in court, he would wait till everybody left to get out of the chair. And I was like, okay, how can I help this guy? I wasn't listening to him.
Right.
And he was telling me how he was able to swim and he felt better. And I was still thinking, how can I help this guy? And then finally I realized this guy's in a good place. He's happy. Who cares what I think about him? He's in a good place as far as he's concerned. And so that was like a light bulb moment for me that a lot of times we all make assumptions about how a client looks, their background, their gender, who they are, about what they're coming to see us for.
Right.
And we have to listen to them first before we try to help them. And of course there might be things that their form might suck. That's one thing. But other aspects of who they are and why they're coming to you, let them communicate that to you before you start making assumptions.
Right.
Yeah.
What has helped you to succeed the most, both academically and professionally?
It's a lot of things. I think number one is be early, take things seriously about what you're doing. And those two things in itself, it can be hard for people to find people like that. So you already set yourself for just being the person who's take yourself seriously in a situation. Your clients notice that, your boss will notice that. Also, I mean, you're always going to look for mentors. I've been in a place where I don't have any mentors around me. So you have to find somebody in the industry that you might be able to talk to, but I want to be like that person and emulate them as best you can. Not copy them, figure out how they treat people. And as a personal mentors, you might have to change them. Eventually, you're going to grow. You might have to grow out of that mentor and find somebody else. And I've had people like that have helped me at this point. Listen to them, let them challenge you, take them out for coffee. You might not hear what you want to hear from them. Mm-hmm. And that's part of having a mentor.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's so much with social media now,
right.
In terms of Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and there's so much information coming out in terms of, hey, this is what you should do for personal training. Here's what you should do. How do you sift through the mirage of information that may be correct and may not be correct? How do you make sure that they're looking at the right things?
I would say start at the beginning. I would say if you are in a space where you're working with clients, focus on that. Learn from the people who are close to you. Watch the lead trainer and see how they work with people. Feel free to talk to your boss about their journey to where they are now. And then especially once you get more clarity about where you want to go, that you can start seeing, okay, this person's social media knows what they're doing. I kind of like regarding to corrective exercise or, powerlifting, something like that that's more focused on who you want to be and where you want to go. You can tell when the form looks bad. You can tell when something could be hurting somebody. And younger population, they can kind of get away with that. And people like active agers, you have to be careful. They could possibly hurt themselves doing something with pretty bad form.
Right.
And so you have to kind of figure out what's the really important thing here. Do you want them to have some really strong form, move better, stability? Or if they're ready to get after it, some powerlifting, then make sure you have the things in place to get them there without hurting themselves.
Okay, great. Great advice. So I think it comes back again to, I think a lot of people really are intrigued by this career and would love to go into this career as a full-time. As you know, I don't know if you just saw that San Diego is the #1 most expensive place to live in the United States right now.
Yep.
As far as a career and having it, make ends meet, what would your advice be in terms of how much to charge, how much money you're actually going to make at this career in order to make a living?
It can be hard to know your worth and actually show it. I would say first look at the general rates of trainers in your area and go from there. And people have differing advice about how to have packages or how to charge people versus credit cards or checks or cash. Just find out what works for you, but don't devalue yourself and try to give discounts. You should be full price or nothing. Like for me, the first client, first day, that session's free. After then, the rates are standard from there. And of course, you can always raise them later on, which I have in the past. But that's definitely the hardest thing to figure out what your rate should be. But I would say talk to someone, talk to your supervisor or talk to somebody else who's been in the industry for a long time and see what they do. But end of the day, obviously you have rent to pay, you have basic bills to pay. Find that rate that works for you and just see, you might have to find out and see what really works best for your clients. And also if your clientele, if it's college students versus people who have full-time jobs, that could be a difference in what they actually can afford and how to work with them.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's the next big question as you bring into it is, how do I find my clients? I think a lot of students will come out of here and go, hey, I want to be a personal trainer. I'm pretty good at it. I'm a good communicator. I'm happy to do all the grunt work to shadow it. But how am I even going to find clients in the first place? How did you find a way to find your clients and build up your client base?
I'm still working on it. Yeah, it's. I mean, I got burnt out early on. I spent a lot of money on Facebook to put ads, and it didn't work. Everybody has a different way. There's also some apps you can put out there, and people can sift through and find trainers. So I've hung things on doorknobs. I put things on cars. Didn't work for me. It could work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I would say just be consistent about that. If you want to post on Instagram, but I think honestly, if you want to post there, have some videos of yourself talking to the camera because you can have some great form and exercise, but see more of your personality.
Right.
That might get more clients in there.
Right.
And then try to narrow down and see what actually works for you. But I'm still trying to, every day is kind of different with me with people. Also, word of mouth though, that's king. If you have someone like a hairdresser or like your lead client that can, hey, could you just talk to Damien?
Yeah,
that's the best way. That's more of a warmer than a cold lead.
Right,
for sure.
Right. I was going to say those personal connections that you've made and the positive results that you've gotten. Yeah. Word of mouth has got to be amazing.
And I would say with that, one thing that I've actually gotten to get better about myself is that so somebody says to you, hey, I have a client, I'll give you your information. A lot of times they might not reach out to you. You need to get their information. And I have one right now that I asked for that. I'm going to reach out to her myself. A lot of times I might forget. Be intimidated.
Yes.
It's just they're just busy and you're sitting there waiting and being passive. And I've been guilty of that too, that you're waiting for them to reach out to you and they're not going to do that sometimes.
Absolutely.
Or they might just kind of just wait back and watch you and they're waiting for you to reach out to them.
Great advice. In this career, obviously you wouldn't still be here in San Diego if you weren't happy and loved where you're at and loved what you're doing. But how do you find that work-life balance in what you're doing, today?
It ebbs and flows. I mean, there's been times where when the last job I was up at 4:00 in the morning, leading hikes at 5:30, training people to my own clients in the afternoon, and I was on my computer working stuff for 8 in the afternoon. I was just burnt out. And so it can ebb and flow. And of course, if you need to pay the bills, you have to do it. There's things that I do outside of training with ACE as well too, and doing articles that kind of help a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it can be hard. I mean, there's trainers at the gym I work at, they're there in the morning till the evening, and they're making it happen. So it just kind of depends upon what your priorities are, what you call success, and what you're able to do.
Absolutely. So what's next for you in your career? It sounds like you've built a nice client base here. You're at two different entities, which are very different in terms of how you're working with different clients, which it's got to be rewarding and refreshing as well. So it's not mundane for you. What's next for Damien in terms of your career?
I would love to get a full-time job at UCSD. But yeah, seriously, like just a salary job would be, that's my next big goal because it's a common stress of just that hourly issues and like holidays, like, trainers don't care about holidays because you have to work.
Right.
So that would be great. I'm doing a lot of writing outside of training and I kind of want to capitalize on that, hopefully get paid during things like that. I've done a little videos.
Yeah.
So that would be the thing that might kind of hopefully intersect.
Great. Yeah. I think the final question is, what would be your one piece of advice for someone who really was interested in getting into personal training as a career, fresh out of college? What would be your maybe 2 or 3 bullet points? We may even talk about it, but just just kind of wrap it up.
I would say like find somebody that is doing it and maybe shadow them, see them work, and ask them some of the hard questions about like how much you make, what's your day like, and that kind of gives an eye opening because it can be fun, it can be glamorous, but it can be like people you have to really enjoy it, and also just be good with people too, and be able to work with them because it's all about life. It's about personality. You can be a great trainer, but you can't work with people, especially with different demographics. They might not come back to see you again.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Damien.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.